I think everyone knows about Wikipedia and the comments in the Wikipedia about Ayurveda. Wikipedia is claimed to be one of the very balanced and open source encyclopedia where the every statement is documented or is written with the support of some documents, and it's considered to be one of the very popular source of information in India as well as in some other countries. But there is a very interesting issue. Very recently, the topic of Ayurveda, if you search for Ayurveda in Wikipedia, you get the first page where you can see these sentences. One, the theory and practice of Ayurveda is pseudoscientific with 3 references, source references, which are quoted as 3, 4, 5. And then the second sentence is the Indian Medical Association characterizes the practice of modern medicine by Ayurvedic practices as practical. There is again a reference source. Now the whole point is about this pseudoscientific word. When it entered into this Wikipedia, very interesting issues. I have done some research on that and I would like to share whatever I have understood. Now, as far as the records available in Wikipedia, the reference of Ayurveda came in for the first time in 2003, on 29/5/2003, mentioning about Ayurveda, and the sentence at that time in the beginning was Ayurveda is more than 6,000 years old system of alternative medicine based on holistic constitutional patient model that employs mainly diet and lifestyle changes and non-toxic herbs as remedies. Till 2018, of course, there were many revisions, so I will not go into all the details of the revisions. Till 2018 December, the sentences were the presentation of Ayurveda is Ayurveda as a system of medicine with historical roots in the Indian subcontinent. Globalized and modernized practices derived from Ayurvedic traditions are a type of alternative medicine. In countries beyond India, Ayurveda therapies and practices have been integrated in general wellness applications and in some cases medical uses. And all of a sudden, on 5/7/2019, there was a new edition, rather modification of the presentation of Ayurveda, where the sentence is changed as it's a system of medicine with historical roots in the Indian subcontinent. Globalized and modernized practices derived from Ayurveda traditions are a type of alternative medicine. In countries beyond India, Ayurvedic therapies and practices have been integrated in general wellness applications and in some cases medical uses. 28/10/2019, again the sentence was modified and re-edited. At that time, the editorial regulations were somewhere modified as such, and it's considered as Ayurveda medicine is considered as pseudoscientific with only one reference, that's one source of information, and other researchers consider it as a proto-science or trans-science, etc. Then again, 2/5/2020, it was again modified, the sentence was modified. Some researchers consider it a proto-science or trans-science and systemic or system instead, with again 2 references. Then came the latest is where it's established like the theory and practice of Ayurveda is pseudoscientific. See the changes in the tenor of the presentations. Initially it was considered as pseudoscientific, then some researchers considered it as pseudoscientific, and now it is said that it is authentically as a pseudoscientific. Now the issue is how these, from which sources they have got this authenticity. What was the real reason? I have gone through all those 3 references, that references mentioned 3, 4, 5. The reference 3, that's they mentioned is it's from Oxford Handbook of Psychiatry, that correct corresponding reference, and the reference is there. And very interestingly, I have read that whole article, and in the whole of the article, there is only one context where Ayurvedic medicine is mentioned. I have copied that sentence. And it was all in the context of describing many pseudoscientific issues. The whole word is, these pseudoscientific theories may confuse metaphysical with empirical claims, and in bracket it's mentioned as example Ayurvedic medicine. In the whole of the article, you don't find any other mention of Ayurveda word except this one quotation. Now reference 2, is again the source I have mentioned that you can read that references and you can go through that. And this article is purely about the authenticity of the journals, medical journals, and there is a very special new word called as tooth fairy science, and it's related to the Ayurvedic publications, Ayurvedic journals. It's not about the source of Ayurveda or Ayurvedic text, and the whole claim in that article is about the quality of Ayurvedic journals where the peer review is not properly done, and they again have mentioned that it's something like a pseudoscience topic acid. Again, there is no learned or authentic article about Ayurveda or anything like about the real study of Ayurveda in that as such. Then the third reference is about a book which was published by Oxford Press in 2011, and this is from the source Disenchanting India, written by Mr. Pack. The name of the author is Pack, very interesting, and it was his PhD dissertation. It's not really a textbook asset or any authentic book asset, it's a PhD dissertation which was published by Oxford Press and published in 2011. And in that article, the whole source of it's about the India and Indian traditions and so on, and all that, whatever the practices which are existing in India and which were supposed to be superstitious, they are commented upon. And there is one chapter about Ayurveda as such. In the chapter about Ayurveda, the issue is the author has had some interviews with some practicing members, practicing Ayurvedic practitioners from Maharashtra, and the source of information, all that regulation, controlling of that authority or the helping him in the article was Agasthya Nirmulana Samiti of Maharashtra. I think it was in the news earlier also, Dabolkar, who was murdered and so on, and it's considered to be one of the authority of rationalists in India, and some of the members of those that Agasthya Nirmulana Samiti who were giving the information to the author John Coy, and it's a huge book which contains around 3,000, I think 3,000 pages. Out of them, something around some 60 to 70 pages are related to Ayurveda. Rest of the things are not our interest, we will not bother about that. In that, in those pages which are related to Ayurveda, it's only that they have met with or interviewed with some practitioners. I don't know the authority, identity of the practitioners are not mentioned in the article, but they have had some interview with the Ayurvedic practitioners who were saying that Ayurveda is of divine origin, and some of them were really saying like, though we have studied Ayurveda, we are not practicing Ayurveda and so on, some sort of criticism there. And based upon that, a PhD scholar has mentioned that it's a pseudo practice. I have copied that sentence which is related to the pseudoscience exactly. I have not added any word. Ordinary members told me how they practice some of these pseudosciences either privately or as certified doctors themselves, most often Ayurveda. Now, these are the only three sources by which the Wikipedia could authentically say that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. Now, the whole issue is about Wikipedia, which is supposed to be an authority and it's supposed to be an open source book, and where every sentence or every fact which is mentioned is with their documentary support. The documents which are mentioned, the references which are mentioned are virtually non-entities. The first two, virtually there is no mention about Ayurveda in general. The third one, it's only about an interview of some practitioners by a PhD scholar, and a statement in a PhD dissertation is mentioned as an authority and say that it's a source for commenting that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. Now, naturally, lots of people were agitated, and there were lots of interactions. Like many people have commented upon, they have even tried to correct that error there, and there was overprotection. The whole page was turned out into a protected page, and nobody could edit, and all that whatever the comments which were written, they got a response saying that this page is protected, and if you attempt to correct that page or any edit the page, then it will be considered as a vandalism and you will be blocked. Now that's about the Wikipedia, which is claimed as a authentic source and a very unbiased source. Now when there was lots of pressure over these groups of editors who were handling this page of Ayurveda and who had really protected the page, they had to give some response, and I am just again copying that response given by one of that author, the authority of that page, who claims to be the authority of the page. I try to read it out. I think you can read it out, but the whole issues, because they were now pressed that, see, you are writing on a unauthoritative source that and claiming that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience and it's not really correct. Their response was, we are biased towards science and biased against pseudoscience. We are biased towards astronomy and biased against astrology. We are biased towards chemistry and biased against alchemy. We are biased towards mathematics and so on. I think all that issue, there is very attractive words used, and the whole 2 pages of that article, and this was written by Guy Markham, who is supposed to be the controller of the page, and this was published on 16th August 2020. And from that day onwards, of course, any of the, I think you can read out all that comments based upon them. And when you read out, I think anyone can easily confirm that this is not really about Ayurveda, and this is not really about a scientific approach, not at all an objective method of presenting the issues. There is very obviously some bias, and when a person gets frustrated, he is not having a debating point, a strong point, the response will be the same, like we are biased and whatever you do, you can do. That's kind of a sort of approach, a very arrogant approach was seen, and still that Wikipedia, I consider this as pseudopodia, still considers and has claimed that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. Of course, by Wikipedia, it says that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. Does it affect or not? Virtually nothing. It's not going to affect that. Whatever the statements in the Wikipedia are not going to change the situation. That's not the point. But many of my old students, as well as many of our colleagues, they were just discussing, and many times they were saying like, you have to give your view on that. Now anyway, that's one. And it's not only that Ayurvedic people were agitated. There are many other people in the society who were agitated, and they started putting pressure upon the editorial board. And one of the attempts is by change.org, where they have started a page where it's claiming like we are against Wikipedia statement which says Ayurveda is pseudoscientific, and you can sign it up, and already more than 10,000 people have signed. And I don't think that this kind of pressure by the group would really change the situation. Whether it changes or not is immaterial, and I don't think that the comment by the Wikipedia is of anything of significance in terms of whatever Ayurveda is. But still, for those people who are having some concern about Ayurveda and its image, this is one of the avenue where you can sign a petition, and the number can increase. But again, I don't think that this number can change the situation.